Hello, how you doing? As you can tell, Heather and I are soaking wet. We are on Merritt Island in Florida, which is really near where NASA launches or used to launch space shuttles and things. And we came here after being at Vieira Wetlands, and it was raining there, so we decided we would come here because you can stay in the car. And we immediately ran into a bunch of spoonbills, which was totally awesome. And we got photographs and even some video of those. So let's take a look at that. All of the wildlife video clips are made with the Canon R6 and the 100 to 500 lens. Look at those spoonbills as they're trying to find something to eat. And here is a in-flight video clip of a spoonbill. Look how fast they fly. It's hard to make a still photo when they're flying that fast. Okay, so anytime in this video that you see Z50 on the file name, that is one of Heather's pictures, and you can see all the settings right here, and you can see what gear was used, and she used the 200 to 500 and the Z50 for everything. So here we are in the rain. You can see the rain falling, and this is a roseate spoonbill with a couple more spoonbills or some other sorts of birds there. Here is another one that she made, 1/800th of a second with the 200 to 500 at 500 millimeters. You got a couple of spoonbills in the grass and another one flying in, and you can see it was actively raining as we were making these photos out the window of the car. This is a photograph. Now Heather's figured out with a little bit of research that if like this bird on the right, they have some orange on their head, that's an adult roseate spoonbill, and the main subject of this picture, 1/800th, is a juvenile roseate spoonbill. And a really interesting picture. There's a lot of grass in the way, and the only thing that's not blocked by grass is the head of this juvenile spoonbill, and it's nicely in focus and has a beautiful eye. I guess that's a great egret or something on the other side there. Here's another photo in that same sequence, another 1/800th photo at 500 ISO and 500 millimeters of that same juvenile in the rain. Okay, here are my photos. They will say CR6 on the top left on the file name, and I used the 100 to 500 lens, and you can see right here this particular shot is at 1/500th of a second, f7.1, and ISO 1000 and 500 millimeters. This is a spoonbill that's flying in the rain. I have a lot of kind of small in the frame shots of the spoonbills and some other birds as they're flying in, and I really like the way they turned out. I like the backgrounds, kind of bokeh-fied, but kind of in focus to where you can tell what's going on. This is another spoonbill flying in. We've learned that this is a juvenile spoonbill as it's flying in with the palm trees in the background and the rain. Here is a orchestra conductor wing position spoonbill coming in for a landing. And there's lots of other birds. There is a snowy egret there, another spoonbill, a couple of great egrets, and yet another spoonbill right in the same area in the rain. These shots kind of early in our time there, I was at 1/500th, really a slow shutter speed for birds in flight, but was shooting at that shutter speed, and it worked out pretty nicely. Here is a great egret coming in for a landing, and you can even see the bones in its wings. And I like to call, there's an actual name for this part of the wing, but I like to call it the thumb. And in this shot, bokeh-fied in the background, there's another great egret right there, and two, let's make that three, roseate spoonbills in the background. Now, I made a number of photos. I was shooting in electronic shutter mode, so that's 20 frames a second of this great egret as it flew by in the rain left to right. And I'm going to share my favorite shots. All of these are at 1/500th of a second. So there is the first one. I liked these shots because of all the colors of the background. There's dark brown in the foreground and kind of a lighter brown, and then a light green, and then dark green in the background. So there's the first shot. Here is the next shot in that flyby, possibly the best shot. And these are still at 1/500th, so there's some motion blur in the wingtips, but I find it acceptable. Here's another shot. I liked this one because a lot of times when these egrets and heron fly, they, like in the previous shot, they have their neck curled up really tight and their head's right by their body. But in this shot, this particular great egret has extended its neck, still at 1/500th. This one's ISO 800, 500 millimeters wide open at 7.1 on that lens. And in this shot, it's drawing its neck back to its more common flying position, 1/500th ISO 500 and 500 millimeters. And now here it is, still flying along, and it's drawn its neck and head all the way back to its regular flying position. And we still have the dark brown, light green, dark green background pattern, which I really liked, and the rain. But as you can see, it's still really nice and sharp on the eye of this great egret. And now let's try some of the same strategy, but this is on a Roseate spoonbill in a very similar area. I think I'd moved the card just a little ways. The background's slightly different. And I upped my shutter speed to 1/1250th, kind of a more birds in flight sort of a shutter speed. This particular one had some black that I thought was interesting around the tips of its flight feathers on both sides. And I'm not sure what that's all about, but I did think it was interesting to see. Still at 1/1250th. And another shot of that same bird with the black on its wingtips, another 1/1250th shot. Look at all that rain. We were shooting out the window of the car, and I had to dry off the instrument panel and the center console, not just the driver's side door, but rain got all over the inside of the car. Now, I believe this is a different bird flying in. Let's see, yes, the previous one looks like a juvenile, and this one is an adult, and you'll see it has no black around the tips of its feathers. ISO 4000 on this shot at 1/1250th of a second, and look at all that rain. Here's another 1/1250th shot, ISO 3200 of this adult spoonbill as it's flying in, and you can see in this shot, you can see some of the orange feathers on the tail, which is kind of interesting. Love this shot because it's coming kind of towards us, and there's a little bit better color, a little bit more color in the grass and the background. Still tons of rain, still at 1/1250th, ISO 3200 on this one, and looks like all of these are at 500 millimeters. All right, now here is a great egret flying by. Still all the, the birds kind of fly into the wind, so they're kind of all flying left to right because the wind was going right to left. 1/1250th, ISO 2000, 500 millimeters. It's still raining, but not quite as much, and nice and sharp on the eye. Another spoonbill. It looks like it's definitely a different flyby shot, but looks like this is the same spoonbill that has the black tips on its flight feathers, both sides. And this one, you can see there, even at 1/1250th, there's still motion blur in the wingtips as it's flapping its wings. Here is a spoonbill in flight shot. This one is also at 1/1250th, ISO 1600, 400 millimeters, and it's filling the frame a lot more than some of the others. So this one was much, much closer. You can see that it's raining and it's just taken off. So there's water drops still coming off of its feet, and you can see the orange in the tail feathers. This is another one probably in that same series, only 363 millimeters here, so that gives me f6.3 instead of 7.1, 1/1250th of a second, and ISO 1250. Looks like it's pretty nice and sharp on the eye, and a beautiful shot to look at in the 16:9 full screen. Look at the feet. You can really see a lot of detail in the feet in this shot as well. We've also seen lots of ducks of various varieties. I think we saw blue-winged teal, and we've seen some northern shovelers and some other ducks. All right, here's a couple of video clips of ducks. There is a male blue-winged teal and possibly a female to his right as they're swimming around there in the shallow waters of Merritt Island, Florida. Beautiful ducks. I was happy to see them. Lots of varieties of ducks in this video clip. Most of them are northern shovelers, but there's also a blue-winged teal, and they are feeding there in the shallow waters of Merritt Island. And here is a wood stork as it's walking along, and while I was making this video clip, as it's walking past some blue-winged teals, Heather was making some photographs of the same bird. This is Heather's photograph, another 1/800th ISO 500 shot, 500 millimeters. This is a wood stork in the rain. And our favorite part of this photo is its, what do you call that?
Claw?
Claw, foot, I don't know what you call it. But anyway, it's shaped like, it looks like a human hand almost there under the wood stork as it's walking along in the rain and doing some fishing. Look how saturated, not like colorful, but saturated with water, all of its feathers are. Man, it was raining a bunch that day, but it was a great day of bird photography. Here are Heather's photographs of the blue-winged teal. I'm guessing that this duck here is a female blue-winged teal, and this duck here is definitely a male blue-winged teal. Another one of Heather's 1/800th of a second photographs, 500 millimeters, ISO 2800. This is another male blue-winged teal that Heather photographed at 1/800th and 1100 ISO. This is a male and probably a female blue-winged teal, 1/800th and 2500 ISO, 500 millimeters with the Z50 that Heather made. Now, I didn't grab any photographs of the northern shovelers, but Heather did a nice job. That's a male on the right and a female on the left. Another 1/800th shot, ISO 500 and 500 millimeters. And you can see it is really raining in this photo. All right, this is the only shot that I saved and presented to you. Heather has a lot of them. This is a male blue-winged teal, 1/1250th ISO 5000. Good looking duck. I've photographed these once in Chattanooga, but that's the only other time I've seen them besides on this date. We've also seen a couple of varieties of heron and egret. I've been working with the 100 to 500 lens. I have my 800, but the 100 to 500 is working out better. As a matter of fact, at one point, we pulled up right by a tree, kind of like we're pulling by a tree right now. It was a little bit further away than that tree, but really close. And there was a tricolored heron in that tree, so there was no way I could have shot that with the 800 and got the whole bird in. As a matter of fact, I did not use the whole 500 millimeters. I'm not sure how many millimeters the shot was, but the 100 to 500 is working out well, even on a full frame camera here, making photographs of large birds, where normally back home I do mostly songbirds, little birds, but these birds are much bigger, so you don't need as many millimeters. This is Heather's photograph with the Z50 of a tricolored heron. Beautiful orange eyes with the multicolored feathers on the bird, 1/800th ISO 640, 500 millimeters. One of my favorite birds of the entire day was this beautiful snowy egret as it was walking around on this pipe. I got out of the car and stood in the rain and made this video clip, and I also made a photograph of it, which I'll show you later on in the video. And also I made a video clip of this osprey as it was flying around and searching for some prey in the shallow waters of Merritt Island down below. Here's Heather's photo at 1/800th and 800 ISO, 500 millimeters of an anhinga there in the rain. Here's Heather's photograph. This is a cattle egret. It's hard to tell it's a cattle egret because it's not in breeding plumage, but if you look right in this area, you can see it does still have a little bit of brown left. When they're in breeding plumage, they have a lot of brown on them. But this is a cattle egret, and I'm not sure if that's an insect or a flower it's eating. And Heather really likes the 1/800th of a second shutter speed, and it's working well for her in this ISO 1000 shot. This is Heather's photograph of a Caspian tern in the water there at Merritt Island. And it's only ISO 320 and 1/800th, and it is really hunkered down in the rain. I got a lot of in-flight Caspian tern photographs earlier on this particular day while we were over at Vieira Wetlands, but I didn't get any like this. It's pretty cool. Now, this bird was sitting stationary, so I was able to slow my shutter speed down, as you can see, to 1/250th, and it was pretty close. I was able to fill the frame top to bottom with only 428 millimeters. Beautiful, beautiful bird. This is a tricolored heron, and they have nice kind of reddish orange eyes and just They've got some blues, and they've got some purples, and they've got white. It's a tricolored heron. Now, this is the same bird in the same location, but I shared 2 different shots with you. This one's kind of a centered shot, and this one's more of a rule of thirds, and the bird's looking much more to the left in this shot. But it's also 1/250th, and let's see, they're both 428 millimeters. The first one is ISO 1250, and the second one is 1600. The last time we came to Merritt Island, all we saw were tricolored heron. We didn't see, well, I mean, we did see more things, but we didn't see spoonbills, and we didn't see a lot of the birds that we saw in January when we came here in July. I love this photograph I made of this snowy egret. It's on a pipe that is allowing the water to go from one side of the berm to the other, and it's sitting there doing some fishing, and it looks like it's kind of introspective in this 1/800th shot at ISO 2000. And I really enjoyed photographing this bird. I got out of the car for this shot. I couldn't make this shot from in the car, and I got absolutely soaked grabbing this shot for you. And there you can see its signature golden slippers. And I think it's interesting as well that the front side of the snowy egret's leg is black, and the back side is gold to match its golden slippers. Beautiful, beautiful bird, the snowy egret. Look at this guy. This is a great egret, and it's all puffed up. I think it was kind of shaking the water off of its feathers right before I made this shot, so I captured it with all of its feathers puffed up from head all the way to its tail. Only 451 millimeters here, 1/320th ISO 160 for this shot. Still in the rain. You can see some raindrops coming down. This is another tricolored heron shot. I don't think this shot's as good as my last tricolored heron shots, but I liked it enough to share it with you. This is definitely a different bird at a different location. 1/320th ISO 400 and 500 millimeters of the beautiful tricolored heron. We just saw right over here out the side of the car, we just saw a bunch of seagulls, a flock of seagulls.
Ring-billed gulls.
Ring-billed gulls, Heather says, and there's some terns out there with them, and a reddish egret. It wasn't doing its regular dance. You know, a lot of times if you see reddish egret or video of reddish egret, they're dancing around and fishing, but with this hard rain, it's just kind of balled up and fishing. Oh, it's moving now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I may make a video clip. This is a reddish egret, and it's hopping out of the water. It was kind of being harassed by some ring-billed gulls, and I'll show you a clip. I was making a video clip while Heather was making this still image. It's another 1/800th of a second Z50 image. This one's at ISO 360. Beautiful bird. There is the flock of seagulls in the foreground, and you can see the reddish egret in the background, and he is being, or maybe she is being harassed by one of the seagulls there. And I was making this video clip, and Heather made the photograph that I just showed you a moment ago. Here is a great egret that Heather photographed with the Z50 and the 200 to 500, 1/800th of a second ISO 320. Definitely in the rain. Here is a patient great blue heron as it's standing there on some shrubbery waiting for something to eat, and slightly different hunting strategy. This is a great egret, and you can see it is in the grasses and actively chasing something instead of waiting for something to come to it. Both ways seem to work because they're both well-fed birds. We're still at Merritt Island. Right over here is a reddish egret, which is the rarest of all the wading birds. And over here are about 30 spoonbills, which is awesome. Plus there's great blue heron, there's little blue heron, there's cattle egret, many Ibis. Just unbelievable. It's like everywhere you look, there's awesome photography opportunities. Here's one of Heather's photos. It shows a spoonbill that had come in for a landing, and you can see all sorts of other varieties of birds. A lot of snowy egret. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with a mohawk. At least 6 snowy egrets. Some other spoonbills. Here's a little blue heron. There's a white ibis, there's another white ibis, just all sorts of birds in this amazing area that we found at Merritt Island. This is Heather's photograph of a spoonbill as it's flying in or maybe flying off. There looks like there's water coming off of its feet, so it may have just taken off to fly a little ways. Heather had increased her speed to 1/1000th because she was doing a lot of birds in flight photography on this ISO 640 shot. Here's a photograph that Heather made, another 1/1000th of a second shot of a spoonbill as it's coming in for a landing, and you can see these birds are known for their pink color, but there's also orange on their head, and Heather did a nice job of capturing the orange tail feathers as this bird is kind of putting on the brakes with the orchestra conductor wing position as it came in for a landing there on Merritt Island. Heather captured this 1/1000th of a second shot of a spoonbill as it was flying there on Merritt Island. You can see the water droplets coming off of its feet. This is another one that probably took off and flew just a little ways and then landed again, as there were several spoonbills fishing there. Another beautiful in-flight roseate spoonbill photograph that Heather captured at 1/1000th of a second with the Z50. You can see some water drops here coming off of its feet. Heather shared this image on social media and people absolutely loved it. It's an adult roseate spoonbill coming in for a landing. It's got the orchestra conductor wing position and nice and sharp on the eye. Really cool shot at 1/1000th of a second with the Nikon Z50 and the 200 to 500 f5.6 f-mount lens adapted with the FTZ. This is a juvenile roseate spoonbill as it's coming in for a landing, and really beautiful young bird here at 1/1000th of a second. Heather captured this adult spoonbill with the Z50 as it was coming in for a landing. You can see some of the orange feathers, but they show orange more on the top side than the bottom side. Still an absolutely beautiful photograph she made, I thought. Heather made this photograph of a common gallinule with the Z50. I didn't even see these. I was so fascinated by the spoonbills and the reddish egret in this area. But Heather has made a number of photographs of these common gallinule over the years, and she has even attracted them with audio from her phone in years past. This is Heather's photograph on the other side of the road from where all those spoonbills were of the reddish egret with the Z50. Heather made a slightly more up-close photograph of the reddish egret there on the side of the road on Merritt Island. What an awesome photograph of an awesome bird. This is Heather's photograph of an adult roseate spoonbill, and she wanted me to make sure and mention that she did not boost the color at all in this photograph. And it looks like it's almost about to blink here, maybe just about. Look, there's where its ear is. What a cool looking bird there in the shallow water. All right, look at that. It's 3 roseate spoonbills in flight, and I like to go to 1/2000th of a second when I'm doing birds in flight. If I have enough light, I needed ISO 1000 to catch this shot of these 3 spoonbills as they were flying in. And this is kind of the area where the spoonbills were landing. Another 1/2000th of a second shot. Heather and I both love to catch the wings in what we call the orchestra conductor position with their wings up high. That's kind of like putting on the brakes. And you can see there's all sorts of other birds, lots of other spoonbills. There is a snowy egret. Here's another snowy egret. I think these birds over here on the left, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 glossy ibis. Just lots and lots of birds. Some of these over here might be white ibis. While all those birds were over, they were kind of gathering together, all the different species of birds, and kind of feeding. And then something spooked them for just a second, and lots of birds took off all at the same time. And this is a 472 millimeter shot, 1/2000th, ISO 800. And I picked this shot because of the wings outstretched on this particular roseate spoonbill right here. But also in this picture, here's a glossy ibis, here's a glossy ibis. You can see the golden slippers of a snowy egret just out of frame. And then here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 snowy egrets here. There's some white ibis over here in the background, and many slightly out of focus roseate spoonbills here. Now here is an orchestra conductor wing position, 1/2000th of a second shot of a white ibis coming in. And in this shot you can see, I love the turquoise eyes of the white ibis. But a lot, if you're close enough to really see the turquoise eyes, usually you don't also see the black wingtips that you only see when they're in flight. But on this orchestra conductor shot, you can see both. Was really happy to have captured this shot. Here's another spoonbill as it's flying across. This one's an adult. Pretty decent shot of the feet there in this shot, ISO 800. This is the only reddish egret photograph I got, and I had lots and lots of opportunities to photograph it, but I was making video clips instead, and then I made an error and failed to get the video clips of the reddish egret off of my memory card before I formatted it, so that's kind of depressing. But here's a really slow shutter speed, 1/200th ISO 160 reddish egret shot at, what was it, 500 millimeters at f7.1. Just an absolutely beautiful bird, and these are somewhat in danger. It's kind of rare to see them. I've only photographed them at Merritt Island. I've been to Merritt Island twice, and we saw possibly 3 different places we saw reddish egret, but it could have been the same bird just flying around. And the last time we went there, I just saw one, and it was a long way away. So this is definitely my best reddish egret shot I've ever made. We were only planning on staying here for about an hour, but we got so carried away with the incredible spoonbill fiesta and reddish egret on the other side of the road, the most incredible bird photography situation I've ever been in. We have lost track of time, and we have a lunch reservation at a fancy restaurant, Steakhouse 71, at Disney's Contemporary Resort at 1:50, and our ETA is 1:54. It was 1:57 about a minute ago, but I'm going 40 miles an hour on a road that has a speed limit of 10, so we're shaving some time off that. But anyway, we are excited to be going to our lunch reservation, and gosh, this is the most amazing bird photography situation that I think either one of us have ever been in. That feeding frenzy with the pelicans was pretty awesome as well. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great day, and as always, we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye bye from Merritt Island, Florida.